All right, peace and blessings, family. I'm back with you all on another spiritual journey, and today I'm talking to Sister Dana Sanders. Correct?
Yes.
Now, what is your spiritual name or your Ifa name?
My spiritual name is Iya, actually short for Iya Larisha Shangodeyi Oyabemi Ogunshina.
What does your name mean?
The first name, Shangodeyi, means Shango, please don't let this child die,
Okay.
which is very apropos for me. Oyabemi is basically blessings from Oya, and Ogunshina, which is our Ile's last name, our spiritual last name, basically means that Ogun clears the roads, clears the way.
Right on. So, were you born into this tradition or in this faith?
I was not. No, I was not. No.
Okay.
I grew up basically here in Baltimore. I grew up Southern Baptist. My parents were agnostic, but
Mm.
I grew up Southern Baptist with my aunts and uncles basically on both sides. So I grew up not in the church, but close enough.
So, how old were you about when you started hearing about the Ifa tradition?
I was actually very, very young. I remember having a book growing up that was all about different mythologies and different religions, and it had stuff in there from like Nordic religions to different types of like Eastern Asian ones. And there was about two stories in there about uh, African traditional religious stories in there. One was the Anansi story, and the other one, I believe, was the one where it speaks of Oya as the water buffalo and how
Mm.
she was had her hide hidden from her by Shango, and I remember hearing about that back then, and it was just so interesting to me because I've always been a student of learning all different types of ways that we see the world. But even back then, hearing about it and definitely trying to learn more about goddesses, feminine deities outside of what I had been learning in the church, as far as with, Jesus Christ, God, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, all that.
So, like, what was it that made you want to go deeper into it that you started to practice it and, and all that?
I got back into meditation and just spending time with myself. Like I'd always kind of flirted around with religious practices outside of Christianity.
Mhm.
Always had flirted around with it. But there was a point in my life where I just knew I couldn't go back to the church. It not even that it wasn't working, it it didn't fulfill me at all. There was
Mm.
always way too many questions. Like we should always question what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're practicing, but there were way too many questions for me to feel comfortable even staying there and being there, especially for the type of person that I was. So I got back into, my spiritual practices, and I spent a lot of time meditating, a lot of time just sitting with myself, thinking, staying quiet, staying in spaces. And I will never forget one day I was meditating, and I just saw this woman come to me in a skirt that had the pieces coming down, and it was
Mm.
each piece was a different color of the rainbow, and she's just twirling, 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 and she's just like, come on. And I know that that was like now I know that that was, oh yeah, telling me
Mhm.
like it's time, like you can't continue to play around with this anymore, like this is where you belong. So that was the moment where I was like, yeah, yeah, because no one else had ever shown up to me. No.
So, when that happened, what did you do? Did you, because with the Ifa tradition, not like you can go down the street and join a church or join a mosque. Like, what did you do?
I started reading every book I could get my hand on. Some of them were great, some of them should have went straight into the fire. Like I read every book that I could get my hands on. Back then when Google wasn't great, typed in every daggone name of every Orisha that I could find, looking up these websites. And at the time, I wasn't plugged into the network of people that it is, especially like what it is now. It wasn't the same back
Right.
in like, this is maybe like almost 10 years ago. So it wasn't the same.
Mhm.
Um, So like it was just a lot of like self-study, a lot of self-study, a lot of sitting and reading and meditating, and does this make sense, and how could this, the idea of gentle character, how can this actually fit into my life? Because I don't think anybody would describe me as a gentle person, but how does gentle character actually fit into my life? So it was just a lot of reading, a lot of reading. I read stuff. Most of the stuff I read was from a Lukumi or Santeria standpoint, so it still
Mhm.
had a lot of that Christian influence
Mhm.
in it. But I will say it kind of helped me to ease into this, because sometimes it could be a real shock, especially to go directly into the direct West African lineages. Like it could
Mhm.
be a real shock. Like
Mhm.
there is no Michael guardian angel Michael in front of what you're doing. There's no Saint
Right.
Lazarus that is there for Babaluaye. Like
Gotcha.
that's not there. Like there is there
For
is
real.
there is no
Yeah.
crossover. So it helped me to be able to put names. It helped me to put names to concepts
Gotcha.
in ways that I can understand, and then be able to shed those concepts as I moved further into my journey.
So, what made you go to Isheshe, like to that door of Ifa, then go through Santeria, Lokumi, or Condomble? Like, what made you go through that door?
Honestly, and this is going to sound messed up, I did not want to have to learn Spanish to practice an African religion. It made no sense to me whatsoever. And that's not shade to
No, I get
Santeria,
that.
Lukumi,
That makes
Condola.
sense.
Like, it's not shade to any of them, but I am, to my knowledge, not Afro Latino. I am not. So for me, it did not make sense to.
That
I'm
makes
already going to have to learn Yoruba. So why am
right.
I also having to learn Spanish in order to be able to talk to my godmother, talk to my godfather, whomever, when I can go straight to the source? And I personally don't have a direct connection to these islands and these places where people were dropped off outside of there. Like I have maybe like one or two people, and they're not in Spanish speaking, they're not in Latino islands. So it just didn't make sense to me.
I about to say that makes perfect sense. That's like a lot of my. I have some friends who've gone to medical school in Cuba, and they had to learn Spanish in order to get to the
Yeah.
medical school. But if you ain't got to do that, that just made total sense.
Yeah.
And when you the first person that you connected with Ifa, was that are y'all still connected, or was that person just one step getting you closer to where you are now?
Oh, wow. Wow, that takes me back. We are not connected. But it wasn't like a bad thing. It was literally just like where my journey was taking me and where they were didn't make it diverged.
Gotcha, gotcha. So with that being said, how did you meet the person you are with now?
I met my godmother actually at the first ever Daughters. Well, not the first. Was it the first ever? I don't remember. At my first ever Daughters of the Moon convention. Um, I remember going there because I'd finally stepped outside of myself and decided to present as an astrologer, because that's honestly that's my first love, astrology.
Mm,
And I was there, and I'm talking like my ear is talking, and she's giving the keynote speech at the end, the closing keynote speech, and I am just like, wow, wow. Like I can feel the gravity, I can feel the spirit, I can feel the ashe. And she was speaking, and it was something that was very important to me, especially being someone who's a part of the LGBTQ community, or what we call the alphabet mafia.
right.
um, that the way in which she spoke about folks finding their place in their space in these African traditional religions, African diasporic religions. Like there's still spaces and places for us, and it's not something where we have to like hide who we are. All of us have spaces and places here, as long as we conduct ourselves with gentle character and according to
Right on.
uh, the tenets and what it's supposed to be. And I will never forget, I walked up to her after it, I waited for other people to get done, and I was just like, I am so like, and word vomit, word vomit, word vomit, oh my god, I can't believe it. And she's just there, and very, oh yeah, uh-huh, uh-huh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it, uh-huh. And it was just like, it was just a real experience. So after that, I got a reading from her. Um, and I will never forget, like, after I got the reading, I was just like, hey, can I join your Ile? Can I join? Because I like how you conduct yourself. I've been watching you for a while and how you move. And like, I really appreciate, like, we don't see eye to eye on everything, but
Mhm.
in the stuff that's really important to look for in a godparent
Right on.
is there.
What was it like to find out what Orisha that's your mother or your father? Like, what was that like for you? And was it what you thought it was going to be? Like, everybody like, oh, I'm Oshun. If you know, I don't know because of Beyonce, I don't know. But like, when you really, really find out, were you like, what?
I was not prepared. I was not prepared. So before I linked up with my ear, I'd gotten a reading at that time, and they said the Oshun was my head, and I was just like, I ain't gonna lie, I was just like, oh, everybody likes Oshun. No, man, yeah. Like, I love Oshun down, but I
Yeah,
don't know that I'm not the type of person that likes to jump in where everyone else is, and
right.
so I'm like, okay. And then my ear gives the reading, and she was like, uh, Oya and Shango are going back and forth. And like, I'm like, oh, Oya's gonna win now. She been showing up for me like for years and years. And it's just like, no, Shango claims you. It's like, okay. Like, what? Me? What? I don't understand, but we gonna rock with it. We gonna rock with it.
Wow, wow. So, when did you decide to get initiated? And
Oh,
was that a
it
hard
was not a
decision to
decision.
make?
It was
Okay.
not a decision. It was not a decision. Um, it's a running joke within our Elay that every time I laugh at somebody else that they have to do something, I wind up having to do it.
Mm,
So there was my mat sisters had got called up to initiate. I was like, vote me, say look at y'all. And the next reading I got, not even a whole 2-3 months later. No, no, no. It was like 2-3 months before they had signed, like they were going to leave and go. They were going, we all went in October. I got my reading in July. And it was like,
wow.
you need to go now. No, there is no waiting. Get your money, get your coins together and go ahead and pay and go. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, okay. And I had a long list of things, like a long list of things that I could not do,
Oh.
taboos that I could not do
Mhm.
until I got initiated. So it was, no drinking, like certain types of food I could not eat. I think I couldn't go out after a certain time. Like, it was a list. So I'm just like, oh, so y'all are making sure that I don't play around and I do what needs to be done. Duly noted. Like, there was no choice. There was no choice. It was just like, you're going, and we're gonna make sure you go because you have stuff to do and you can't keep putting it off.
So you said your first love is astrology. Does that somehow fit into? Is it there's some connections between that and Shay Shay or no?
For me, they're most like the Venn diagram of that is like a very small sliver. For me, astrology, I view it as a language. It's a language for us to really understand who we are and the assignments that we set up for ourselves before we actually came into being, before we came out the womb. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
information there. Like, we know that, according to science, that intelligence is passed down through the mother, along with just like, mental illness. We know that through the father you get certain things. So like, there's
Right.
some stuff that's already kind of predetermined. There's a certain amount of nature that is already imparted in us, and astrology helps us to look at that. And it's also about timing and figuring things out. And what's a good time to do this? What's a good time to do that? How it connects for me with Ishe is, like I said, the understanding that when before we come here, we sit down and we figure out what it is that we want to do, what it is that we
Mhm.
need to do, and how
Mhm.
we are going to do it. It's that understanding. And then to a certain idea for me, it's how Ifa, as far as with the Odus, how it is a language of its own to understand who we are as a culture, that of Aberishas, Iyas, and Babas, and all of that, I will who practice this cultural practice, because it's not just a religious practice; it's a
Mm-hmm.
cultural practice. Remembering, like, that's a language. The Odus are languages within themselves for us to understand their stories. And it's the same way that it works out in astrology. I do not do that whole thing where it's like, the Shango is the planet Mars. That's crap. It's
I never heard that
that's crap.
before.
I've
Okay.
seen it. I've seen people do videos where they match them up, and I'm just
Oh
like,
God.
no, no. I've been doing astrology for over 30 years. I can tell you what that's not.
Okay.
That, like, don't do that.
Okay. I never heard of that before. So that's why I was like, wow. I can believe it though, seriously, that people would
Oh yeah.
want to link stuff up. So when you started practicing this tradition, what was your family's response? Or did they all start practicing it with you?
No, my family is still mostly agnostic. When I see some of my aunts, they still ask me if I've accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. It's like,
Mhm.
that's your homeboy, that's not mine.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had already been estranged from a lot of my biological family. Like, um, there is a lot of trauma that I had suffered at the hands of certain family members. So I was very much that I will see you at the family reunion, bing, bang, boom. After the family reunion, I'll see you next year. So I didn't
Mhm.
have to explain a lot to my biological family. I did have to have conversations with friends that I considered family. And all of them were just like, this is great. Like, we're not necessarily going to practice. We have our own practices, but
Right.
like, can you tell me a little bit more about this? And I love the fact that all of them that I had the conversation with, they said, what can you tell me? Is it
Mm,
okay if I ask this question? Because so many of them know about or practice initiatory practices themselves.
gotcha.
So, like, I really appreciated that.
Did you use any? Are you able to use any of this tradition to help you deal with some of the traumas?
Yes, I lay my burdens down at my pots, my shrines often. I lay my burdens down often, making sure that I'm getting Ibori's, making sure that I'm staying, like, it's that I'm able to take my spiritual baths on a regular basis to
Mm,
kind of, if I'm not feeling good, like, if I'm having some bad days, then I know it's time to wash my hand in some coconut water and go ahead and say some prayers. If I'm just too angry and the PTSD is flaring up, then I'm gonna calm down as much as I can, because stepping in front of Shango in that way is not necessarily the best. But
mhm.
having conversations with them and actually working through it, like, I've had so many epiphanies sitting down in front of my
Mm,
shrines and my altars. Like, I can't they typically tell you, like, I've heard time and time and time again, don't cry in front of a wound, because every time I'm having a bad day, every time, like, I'm to the point where I feel like I want to break down and nothing's going good. Like, I sit in front of my Ogun shrine and I cry
mm,
my heart out. I cry my heart out, because for me, it's not necessarily about him cutting down my enemies. It's about him helping me to uproot a lot of this stuff that sits so deeply in me, because I'm the type that, like, the trauma comes and I'll eat it. I'll eat it, I'll
mm.
stuff it down, I'll eat it, I'll stuff it down, I'll eat it, I'll stuff it down. So sitting in front of him and having these conversations with him, it helps me to continue to pull those roots out so that I can get them out and actually really grow and have fertile soil for new things and new experiences in my life.
Right on. I want to show this photo real quick. These are like, just trying to give you an idea. How would you describe the Orishas?
Um, the Orishas, as we know them, basically how I would describe them,
Mhm.
are representations of forces of nature, forces of life, and just existence itself. So they are basically, as we know it, the larger creator poured down into another creator, poured down into another creator, and they poured into the Orisha. So they are ways for us to view the ever, like, enco- the encompassing, way too large encompassing idea of the very creator itself, of the cosmos, because to try and get an idea of how large the cosmos are is just, it's on, we can't fathom that. We truly can't. But they are ways for us to understand how this world that we live on works. And not just the natural world and the material things that we see around us, like Oshun being sweet waters, Ya being the river, the other rivers, there are also certain characteristics that we uphold and uplift in our culture and in dealing with one another and even dealing with ourselves. So
Right
they're
on.
all different aspects of nature and who we are as a people being mirrored back to us.
Okay. So you know how like we have like Santeria and Candomblé and
Hmm.
Chaco the Baptist or whatever, and those are things that came over into the so-called New World.
Hmm.
Why do you think that did not happen for the black people who came into America through slavery? Like
Um,
why we didn't were able to keep them the way they did, like with Santeria or Candomblé or whatever.
I look at it twofold.
Okay.
I look at it from the standpoint of the work of suppression was so good that we could not. A lot of folks just could not fathom continuing to practice what we practice. Um, there are aspects of Onisheshe that are practiced within hoodoo, which is a very real African American religion and culture. So there are aspects of that that are there. And also, we have to realize that Yoruba people were not the only people who came here. We're dealing from tribes in the Congo, tribes all the way up. So you have a lot of different religious practices trying to fight and meld together. And sometimes that melding shows up as the Christian church that we see when folks are catching the Holy Ghost. They're passing spirits.
Mhm.
When folks are doing communion and Baptist, it looks like that's a Catholic practice. However, we know what happens when Ebo goes down for a blessing, how everyone shares and partakes in that. We
Right.
know what baptism is, going ahead and getting your spiritual bath and actually bathing in the waters to get the blessings from Oshun, from Yamaja, from Ya. Like, we know what that is. So there are still
For sure.
ways that when we, again, take away the Christian idea of it, that these practices are still in place. They they just melded with different things. And I always try to remind folks, one of the oldest Bibles in existence is Ethiopian. So while a lot of us along this western, that came from folks along the western part of Africa, were not Christians, the idea that Christianity is not African based is a bit off.
Got
What
you.
we know of as Christianity that is practiced mostly here in the US, it's not Christianity. It's not African based. It does not have that part. But when you're looking at the fact that some of the oldest churches and the oldest Bibles who have books in it that the Catholic Church just chucked out because it did not fit their agenda, and they've had this for hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years, that influence, like, I still see that type of influence in what we have as well. So there is a way to pull that in that is still African in and of itself. It's just when we are practicing Christianity in a way that is very much from the Roman Catholic Church, that is very much from the treatise that was put on the door by Martin Luther. That's where we lose it. That's where we lose that African influence.
Got you. You explained that perfectly. I just love the way you said that. When you're an Ia, is that just like something you call everybody, or is there a certain expectations or duties of a Ia or
Um,
Ia Nifa?
okay, so like Ia is basically initiated. It's an initiated woman or female. So
Mhm.
just short for, it's either short for Ia Lorisha, Ia Nifa, sometimes Olorisha. But Olorisha and Ia Lorisha and Ia Nifa are three different things.
Okay.
I There are expectations with this. Like, sometimes you initiate because you need to do it to have that orisha on you to get better, to not die. Sometimes you do it just because you are only supposed to take care of a shrine for like for your family and for your lineage. And then
Mm-hmm.
there are times where you get initiated because you're supposed to do work within the community at large.
Gotcha.
uh, so understanding why you're getting initiated is very important. Typically that's where you start getting into the titles of Eola uh, or Olorisha. Ianifa, you're going into E5, you're going to be working with the community regardless. Like that's just
Gotcha.
hang it up there. Like there is no private workings. Like no, like you're going to be working for the community regardless. And yes, with any of those titles, once you actually start using those titles, there is an expectation.
Okay.
Um, that there is an expectation that again you carry yourself with gentle character. We all mess up, but like we all are supposed to be carrying ourselves as if we're in white cloth at all times, like Obatala.
Mm,
You don't want to smudge that cloth. You want to tread as carefully as you can. You still got to live your life. You still got to have fun. There's not many things that only Shay is going to tell you can't do. Like Shay is going to tell you can't do. This ain't Christianity. It's not a lot of stuff we're going to tell you can't do across the board.
gotcha.
However, once you start taking on the work to be in a leadership position in the community, because that's what it is, then you have a responsibility to serve your community, to be a mentor and someone that folks in the community can look up to. It's not easy. It sucks some days.
Mm.
It definitely does. I tell people all the time, like, I'm not necessarily the ear you want to follow, but I have no choice but to carry myself in a way that does not bring any shame on my Egun, my ancestors, that does not bring any shame to Shango, and that does not bring any shame to my ear and my allure. Like I and to myself, I can't shame my own Ori. Like
Mm,
all of them could drop away any moment right now. I can't bring shame to my own Ori, my own Godhead. Like I can't do that. If I can lay down every night and feel good about what I did during the day, and my Ori is good with it, it's whatever.
mm. I get that. That makes sense. What type of advice would you have for someone who wants to learn more about E5 but don't really know where to start or who to trust? Because we on these internet streets, on these Facebook streets,
Hmm.
everybody and their mama is like, I can help you with that. And I can, you know what I mean? What would you tell a person who's trying to seek and find and understand more? It's not like going to go join church or something like that.
Yeah. Um, be careful what books you read. Read every book with a grain of salt, especially because you don't know who's telling you the truth and who's mixing and matching and doing lots of ridiculous stuff. I'm gonna say some controversial stuff. If they are white, don't listen to them.
Why you say that? No, not to cut you off, but why you say that? Like white people can't be in?
No, it's not that white people can't be in it. They're like the Orisha choose whoever they choose. Who am I
Right.
to say that? But I personally have a issue with white folks using what we do, writing books and taking
I
profit
agree.
in for
I
that.
agree. I agree.
Like I personally just have an issue with that. Like there's a difference between sharing the information when you talk and actually writing a book and getting money off of that. If anyone jumps in your inbox, whether it's Instagram, Facebook,
Oh God.
TikTok, whatever, did that. Like, don't follow them, block them immediately. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. And take your time. Take your time. You'll be surprised how much your ancestors will work to put you in the path of who you need to be in the path, like who you need to meet up with to learn this. If you take your time and you just start playing, like you start praying to them. Ancestral veneration is the backbone of not just Ifa, but West African religious and culture, period.
Mm,
Use your Egun. Ask them Ask them to direct you to where you need to go. Ask them to direct you to the books you need to get, and you'll be surprised how they work for you.
Got you. You brought up ancestors. I'm glad you brought that up. Um, a lot of people feel like because they don't necessarily know their ancestors, that they didn't know if they could really um, venerate them, acknowledge them, because they really don't know who they are for some of them.
Hmm.
How do you help people to work through that?
Well, it's the same way. Your ancestors don't necessarily know you. They didn't see you in the flesh. So
Mm,
if you didn't see them in the flesh and they haven't seen you in the flesh, why wouldn't they still have a connection with you? Literally, the very skin that you touch, the very organs that work, it has their DNA.
I know.
They're pieces of you that are made up of them. So you have that connection. If you see, as Black folks, if we see a child in the street, are they and they're doing something wrong, do we have to be related to them? Do we have to know their name to
No.
be like, hey,
Yeah,
I don't think you want to do that.
not at all. No.
So I don't need to know your name to look out for you. And your ancestors, especially, don't need you to know their name in order for them to work with you.
Right on.
If you don't know names, just saying ancestors, they know who they are. My ancestors, the ancestors of Dana Thais Lee Sanders, the ancestors of Iya Sangoyde or Yobemi Ogunshina, the ancestors of my ancestors. If you know your mother's name, the ancestors of your mother, the ancestors of your father, like you speak that, they know who they are.
Mm,
If they are ancestors, because there is a difference between ancestors and folks who done just died.
right.
Folks
Real
who done
talk.
just died, but the ancestors know that there is work to be done and they got eyes on us at all times.
Right on.
And they know we don't need to know exactly their name because our blood calls to their blood. Our flesh calls to their flesh. Our bones call to their bones.
Right on. Thank you for that. Because sometimes that comes up in the question. So I always put that. What is the why is it important though to venerate your ancestors?
Because this all of this started with ancestral veneration. The very religious practices that we have and the culture that we have has been passed down through our ancestors. It is through them that this practice will continue, that this culture will continue. If we are granted the ability to become ancestors, then that we'll have done our part and we'll continue to do our part. Like the very first people, humans put on this earth, why would we not want to venerate them and say thank you? Thank you
Right
for
on.
being good stewards of what we had so that it's still here today. Thank
Mm,
you. Thank you for making for fitting A into B so we can have C, D, E, F, and G. Like,
right on.
thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for tilling the land. Thank you for just begetting so that I am here.
Right
Like
on.
there is a love and a joy in that. We a big old family. Why not just look at your family be like, hey, I see you. Like, hey, like I'm
Right.
happy to see you. I love you. We doing great things out here in these streets. Like,
Right.
why would we want to do that?
That's what's up. I'm so grateful to talk to you this evening. Because I just think this is those conversations. I do a lot of I work with a lot of girls every day, but I also talk to a lot of adults. And I'm originally from the East Coast, so I
Hmm.
remember growing up in Philadelphia talking to and hearing and talking to a lot of us, and that's how I learned a lot of things.
Yeah,
You know, even when my family didn't know what all of that stuff was, we still had altars in our house.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Even
yeah.
though my mama was raised Catholic and then was Baptist and then but she still had all of those elements there, whether
Like
she understood it or not.
I laugh at like some of my Christian family members and just some Christians in general. They're like, I don't have any altars in my house. But then you look and they got the whole wall with the table and the favorite food set up, and on the wall there's nothing but
Yep.
the obituaries of the people that
Yep.
have gone
Yep.
past. And it's like,
Yeah.
sure, Yeah, sure. Yeah, you don't have any altars. No.
I also went to I work with a bunch of girls. So every week I've been taking a bunch of girls to see the Woman King. And every time I go, it never ceases to fail that you'll hear some black people when they do the blood offering and then they do, I don't know if you've seen it yet,
I
but
haven't seen it yet.
oh, so they do they E5's all in there. And just to
I've
hear
heard.
people's comments, and you're like, dude, like, come on. Like, come on.
Where do you
You
think your
know,
chicken comes from?
yeah, right, really. You know
I
what I
love
mean?
chicken
So
tenders, but yeah, it don't
yeah,
show up like that in the world. Like
right, right.
some got to get butchered.
So I just feel like, wow, like I love the fact that they showed it, and where they did it, it was so natural. It wasn't something that was like cosmetically, it was a part of everyday life.
Yeah,
Just something that you did. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So I don't know. I just
I
feel like
laugh at a lot of these, like again, like what you're saying. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe
yeah.
it." But these same people will go ahead and like celebrate, even if they're not Haitian, the Haitian Revolution, Haitian Independence Day, and it's like, but do you not know what happened that
I agree.
night?
Yeah.
Do you not know that they sacrificed several boars and pigs to lacerate, like to Haitian voodoo god? Like, do you
Right.
not know? So how are you going to celebrate this? And it's literally built on the backbone of that. How are you going to celebrate who we are as a people, but it's built on the backbone of that? How
Yeah.
are you going to have an issue with this, but when you find out that Jewish folks do the same thing on their on a couple high holidays, it's,
Days.
oh, well, they're just Jew. Why is it okay for them but not okay for us? Trust
Wow.
me, trust me. Goats, all these animals cost entirely too much to be doing this willy nilly.
That's so true.
They cost too much to be doing this willy nilly. Like, ain't nobody got no go money. Like, don't nobody want to feel chuck out no money for it. Like, that's expensive.
Yeah.
That's
That's true.
expensive. And you got to drive around and find somebody who's, it's too much. It's work and it's
Yeah.
costly. So ain't nobody out here doing it just because they like, we just going to sacrifice it.
No. I also think it just allows you to dig deeper into your spiritual belief where you're not just constantly taking, but you ain't giving nothing out. Like
Yeah.
everything is like reciprocity. We haven't figured that out yet. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We're only coming to God or that energy when we want something that, you know what I mean? But we don't do it like on a constant basis in terms
Yeah.
of reciprocity. You know, we don't get that part. It's always like, save me, protect me. You know what I mean?
Oh God, what are
And
we
it's
gonna
like,
do? Help me, help
yeah,
me.
right. So I feel like in spirituality, you have to work on that every day. And it's not
Yeah,
perfect, but you still got to work on it. You know, you got to work on it.
yeah. But like the animals are not the only type of ebo that we give. It's not the only type of sacrifice that we give. It's our
So true.
time. It is our money. It is the taboos that we give up, the things that we give up that are in our taboos in order
Right
for
on.
us to live a better life. Like I wake up and I'm on my knees every day,
Mm,
saying prayers.
right on.
Like it's no days off. It's like it's no days off. It's no days off. That is my sacrifice every day. Whether I'm having a good day and they done gave me something, or whether I'm having a bad day and I feel like they left me out to dry, I'm down there. Even if my only, like the simplest prayer I can give is, thank you for being with me for another day. I thank you for the blessings that you give me. I thank you for the protection that you pour over me. Ashe. Like if that's all I got to give the day, they still gonna get that prayer.
Right on. Right on. Well, sis, thank you so much. I'm so excited. This is a great interview. I felt like I got some gems. I was like taking notes on and setting my book. And I love that because you know sometimes I'm in California. It's not like you know how like people go to church and they hear the lesson, they get their little Corinthians, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you know, thank God for the internet. You could like sit and listen. And I listen to a lot of lectures and stuff online, and just
Hmm.
you know, in my research. But it just feels good to talk to someone who really understand that, and there's no like political agenda. Because I hate when people talk like that. I'd be like, I ain't come here for all that. I came here for this part. Like I don't care about that part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I should care depending on what it is. But sometimes I'd be like, yo, I didn't really come here for that.
I
Like, could you
mean,
just stick to the lesson, please?
when you have your mouth set on steak, but somebody show up with shrimp, like,
Oh,
it is what it like. You don't want that shrimp. Like I
Yeah,
don't want that shrimp.
that's real talk. So I thank you so much, and I'll shoot your email, let you know when I'm going to air this because I'm like
Awesome.
gathering up all my interviews. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This,
Thank you for reaching out. And thank you for reaching out to other folks in my ELA. I told my
yeah,
ELA, I was like, okay, good. So I don't have to reach out because I was like, I ain't gonna lie. Like I sent that copy and
good.
posted and I was like, does anybody know her? And she
Yeah,
was what's her name was my ear was like, yeah, I know her. So like she reached out to me and I was like, okay, good. She reached out to
yeah,
you. So I don't have to ask her to reach out to you for an
that's,
interview. Like cut out the bit like
I love it.
already good.
Right.
Already good.
I think it's important for people to hear our stories. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm convinced that because that happens to me. Like I'm 50, but in the 70s, I researched a lot of stuff from certain time periods, and I love it that people left glimpses. It's like, wow, I didn't have to figure this out. Like, they, or I'm able to see something in me that happened to them. Was like, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I mean? Like, that was happening then. Like, yeah. So I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like the beauty of having this technology is I hope we will leave our thumbprint
Yeah.
so that somebody could pick that up and don't have to keep recreating the wheel.
Yeah. Like
'Cause
it,
that
it
takes a lot of
makes
time.
yeah, it makes a difference when you have this information at your fingertips and you can see someone who looks like you
Yeah,
speaking these things, who has some of the same intersections in life that you do,
right on.
that
'Cause
you can actually get the information from, like you said, with no agenda, especially if they're just telling
mm,
their story.
yeah, 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 that I get. I totally, totally, totally. I know when I first heard of this tradition, to be honest with you, I first heard about it when, well, I'm from originally from Philly, so we always had Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, but it was always from that lens.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Then I went to Cuba and it was like everywhere. Then I went to Brazil and it was everywhere. And you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And so I came through that door, but I'm the type of person I have to go to the root at some point. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not Catholic. I don't, girl, please. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know what I mean? So
Oh
it's funny,
yeah.
like I do have respect that other brothers just say it's like an umbrella. It's like Ephi is like an umbrella. When you open it up, you have all this different water. It's like different ways that it survived, if you will, but it's still the same umbrella. But I
Yeah.
don't have to do all the other stuff because I'm not Spanish, or I mean I've been to Haiti, same thing, around with the
Yeah.
Haitians. You know what I mean? But people try to sometimes in certain African communities make you feel like it's so wicked, like that's the devil. And it's like,
Why are you still in bondage? Why are
yeah,
you still
yeah.
in
But
bondage?
it's just like, y'all, come on, like this is your enemy telling you this. Like, and you got to know that. Like, I've been to the lynching memorials. Like, how can you believe anything these people say after all the stuff they did and continue to do? Like, how you gonna take their word for it? Like, that's kind
My
of a little crazy.
every single religion has been used in some way, shape, or form to oppress someone,
I
even
get,
including their own people, including Ifa. In some ways, it has
I
been
get that.
used to oppress some of us.
I agree.
So
Mhm.
if you're just focusing on that, you're going to miss all of the gems that are coming through. Like I said,
Right.
I grew up agnostic but going to the Christian church. I grew up like during the summer, I would go to the Catholic church every day, hang out with Father Tom. We'd be chilling. Me and a bunch of the other neighborhood kids had a great time. Great time. And I hated Christianity for a while. I couldn't believe what it had done to me. And
Right.
then I had to step back and be like, it wasn't it. It was the people.
That's right. Their
It was the
interpretation of it.
structures they set up.
Yep.
It was the structures they exploited that
That's real
Christianity had
talk.
built. Especially when I started looking up the information, like I said, about the Ethiopian church
Yeah.
and how far back it goes. And just like,
That's real talk.
they don't even talk about this. Like, there is no concept of this, especially in America.
Yeah.
The oldest churches that we know about are AME, African Methodist. Like, those are
Episcopal.
the oldest ones that we know about, but they don't even know about this. They aren't
Yeah.
even willing to look at the Ethiopian Coptic Bible
Right.
to look at it. They aren't even understanding that the Gnostic Bibles that came from before Jesus Christ was a thing and the Christian mysticism that came before all this. Like, there is so
Wow.
much that just got ripped out of it.
Real
And I
talk.
was learning all this stuff before I came to Ifa,
Wow.
before I came to Isheshe, because I was looking for anything to keep me in, anything to keep
Real
me
talk.
fed.
Real
And
talk.
it wasn't feeding me, But once I came over here and I realized that I did not have, I could still see the beauty in it, but not participate in it.
I know.
The shackle was gone. I was like, I see it. I see the beauty in it. I see the Africanness in it. I see how we have taken that pig slop and turned something a little nice into it.
And I will say, even in Christianity, when they, however they gave it to us when we got here,
Mm-hmm.
who we are still came through it. That's why black churches ain't like other churches.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? The Africanism. It still comes through.
Like
It just, yeah,
we blended ourselves into it, like the Congo traditions, all of that stuff. We blended ourselves
yeah.
into it, and it's
I can see that.
beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. I can't be mad at that. I could be mad at pimping. I could be mad at pimping pastors. I could
right.
be mad at white patriarchy that's put into Christianity.
I
I
get
could be
that.
mad at the fact that the building fund for the new roof ain't never been filled. Like I could be mad at that, but the actual teachings of Christ
Right, right on.
is solid.
Yeah,
Like I heard the
I get
saying,
that.
I heard the saying a while ago. I don't like Christians. I like that Christ you have. I just don't like Christians.
Mm, I
And
get
it's
that.
like,
I get that. That's real talk. That's real talk. Thank you, sis. Thank you so much. Man, look here. I'm so grateful for this conversation. Thank you so much. And
thank
I'll
you.
let you know when this airs. So hold on, don't hang up yet. Okay, family. I will be back next week with another guest on spiritual journeys. All right. Peace, y'all.